When Tom first arrived in California, he felt as if he had stepped into another world. The warm sunlight touched his face, the palm trees waved gently in the breeze, and the ocean seemed endless. He had dreamed of this moment for years, imagining himself living in a place full of opportunities, culture, and adventure. Everything looked bigger, brighter, and more alive than he had ever expected. For Tom, this was not just a change of location. It was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. He moved into a small apartment in Los Angeles, which was not luxurious, but it was enough for him. From his window, he could see the busy streets filled with cars, bicycles, and people rushing to work. The energy of the city was contagious, and Tom immediately felt inspired to chase his dreams. At night, the city lights created a magical view, reminding him that he was in one of the most famous places in the world. The sounds of music, laughter, and street performers filled the air, making every moment feel alive. In the first days, Tom faced many challenges, especially with communication. Even though he spoke some English, understanding the fast conversations around him was difficult. Sometimes he felt lost, especially when ordering food or asking for directions. But instead of giving up, he used these moments as opportunities to learn. Every conversation became a lesson, and every mistake brought him closer to improvement. He carried a small notebook, writing down new words and phrases he heard during the day. California was not only about big cities. It also offered nature and beauty everywhere. Tom loved walking along the beach, where surfers rode the waves and families gathered for picnics. The sunsets were breathtaking, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. These moments made Tom reflect on his journey, giving him strength to continue. He knew that life here would not always be easy, but the beauty around him reminded him why he had chosen this path. By the end of his first week, Tom realized something important. California was not just a place, it was a lifestyle. People here were diverse, open-minded, and full of energy. He met individuals from different countries, each with their own story and culture. This diversity made him feel welcome, even though he was far from home. Tom knew he had made the right decision, and deep inside, he promised himself that he would not waste this opportunity. Chapter 2: Finding Work and New Friends. Tom knew that in order to stay in California, he needed to find a job. At first, it was not easy. He applied to many places, from small cafes to big offices, but most of the time he received no answer. Sometimes, employers asked for more experience or better English. This frustrated him, but he refused to give up. He reminded himself that every successful person had once started from the bottom. Every rejection was just part of the process. After weeks of searching, Tom finally got his first job in a small coffee shop near the beach. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave him the chance to practice English every day. He served coffee, cleaned tables, and talked with customers. At first, he made mistakes when taking orders, but the customers were usually kind and patient. Slowly, his confidence grew, and his English improved. He began to enjoy the conversations, learning about different lifestyles and perspectives. One day, a customer named David noticed Tom's effort and started talking to him regularly. David was also from another country, and he understood how difficult it was to adapt to a new culture. They became friends, and soon Tom was introduced to David's group of friends. This new circle gave Tom a sense of belonging. They invited him to barbecues, hiking trips, and even surfing lessons. Tom felt lucky to be surrounded by people who supported him. Work also taught Tom the value of discipline and responsibility. Even when he was tired or homesick, He showed up on time and gave his best. The manager appreciated his dedication and eventually promoted him to supervisor. This was a small step, but for Tom, it meant a lot. It showed that hard work and persistence could open doors. He felt proud of himself, realizing that progress was possible if he stayed committed. Through work and friendships, Tom began to feel more at home in California. He was no longer just a visitor. He was becoming part of the community. His days were full of activity, his English skills improved, and his confidence grew. For the first time, he felt that he was building a real future in this new land. Chapter 3: Exploring the Wonders of California. As Tom's life became more stable, he decided to explore more of California. On weekends, he traveled to different places, discovering the state's beauty. He visited San Francisco, walking across the Golden Gate Bridge and enjoying the view of the bay. He explored Yosemite National Park, where the mountains and waterfalls left him speechless. Each trip gave him unforgettable memories and made him appreciate the diversity of California even more. Los Angeles itself offered endless adventures. Tom loved walking down Hollywood Boulevard, where stars on the sidewalk honored famous actors. He visited film studios, fascinated by the world of movies. He also enjoyed concerts, art galleries, and food festivals. California was a melting pot of cultures, and Tom never ran out of new experiences. Each corner of the city had its own story, its own flavor, and its own rhythm. What amazed Tom the most was how people in California valued creativity and innovation. He attended events where entrepreneurs shared their ideas, and he visited technology centers where the future was being built. This inspired him to think bigger. He realized that California was not only about entertainment and beaches, but also about possibilities. It was a place where dreams could truly become reality. Of course, exploring was not always easy. Traveling required money, and sometimes Tom had to save for weeks to afford a trip. But he believed that every experience was worth the sacrifice. To him, adventures were investments in his growth. Meeting new people, seeing new places, and learning new things made his journey richer and more meaningful. Through exploration, Tom discovered something even more valuable than the places he visited. He discovered himself. Each trip showed him his strengths, his passions, and his ability to adapt. The more he explored, the more he understood that life in California was not just about surviving, but about living fully. Chapter 4: Challenges and Growth. Life in California was exciting, but it was not always easy. Tom faced many challenges, especially when dealing with financial problems. Rent was expensive, bills piled up, and sometimes he worried about money. There were nights when he stayed awake, calculating how to survive until his next paycheck. These struggles were real, but they also taught him how to be responsible and organized. Another challenge was being far from family. Sometimes he missed his hometown, the familiar faces, and the comfort of being with loved ones. Video calls helped, but they could not replace hugs or shared meals. Loneliness sometimes crept into his heart, making him question his choices. But Tom reminded himself why he had come to California in the first place: to build a better life and grow as a person. He also faced cultural differences. Some customs and behaviors seemed strange to him at first. For example, the fast-paced lifestyle and the emphasis on individualism were very different from what he was used to. But instead of resisting, Tom decided to learn from these differences. He adapted, keeping the best of his own culture while embracing new ideas. This made him more open-minded and flexible. Every challenge became a lesson. Tom learned to manage his money better, to balance work and personal life, and to take care of his mental health. He discovered the importance of exercise, meditation, and spending time in nature. These habits gave him strength and kept him motivated. Slowly, he realized that challenges were not obstacles, but opportunities for growth. By facing difficulties, Tom became stronger. He developed resilience, patience, and determination. He no longer feared problems. Instead, he welcomed them as chances to learn. This mindset changed everything, making his journey in California not only about success, but also about personal transformation. Chapter 5: A Bright Future Ahead. After years in California, Tom looked back at his journey with gratitude. He remembered the fear he had when he first arrived, the mistakes he made, and the challenges he faced. But he also remembered the victories, the friendships, and the unforgettable experiences. His life had changed completely, and he was proud of who he had become. Tom now had a stable job, a group of loyal friends, and a place he could truly call home. His English had improved so much that he felt comfortable in any situation. He no longer felt like an outsider. He was part of California. This gave him confidence to dream even bigger and to set new goals for the future. One of his dreams was to open his own business. Inspired by the entrepreneurial spirit around him, Tom started planning a small cafe where people from different cultures could gather, share stories, and enjoy good coffee. He wanted his cafe to be more than just a place to drink. He wanted it to be a community where people felt welcome, just like he had felt welcomed in California. Tom also wanted to give back. He started volunteering, helping newcomers adapt to life in California, just as he had once struggled. Sharing his story and giving advice made him realize how far he had come. He understood that success was not only about personal achievements, but also about helping others grow. As Tom looked at the horizon during another beautiful California sunset, he smiled with hope. His journey was not over. It was just beginning. California had given him challenges, lessons, and dreams. Most importantly, it had given him the chance to become the best version of himself. Chapter 6: The Power of Education. After settling into my new life, I realized that education would be the key to going further. Even though I'd already learned a lot through daily experiences, I wanted to improve my English and gain professional skills. So, I signed up for evening classes at a local community college. At first, I felt nervous because I was older than many of the students, but I quickly understood that learning has no age limit. The classrooms were filled with people from all backgrounds, and that diversity motivated me. My first English class was challenging. The professor spoke quickly, and sometimes I struggled to understand. However, I made a promise to myself. No matter how difficult it became, I would not give up. Every evening after work, I spent hours reading, writing, and practicing pronunciation. Some nights I was exhausted, but I reminded myself that this was an investment in my future. Slowly, I began to see progress, and each small improvement gave me confidence. Education also opened doors to new friendships. I met classmates who shared my struggles and ambitions. Together, we formed study groups, helping each other with assignments and practicing conversations. These connections reminded me that I was not alone in my journey. We laughed together, made mistakes together, and celebrated every step of progress. School was no longer just about learning. It was about building a supportive community. Through my classes, I also discovered new passions. I took a business course that completely changed the way I saw opportunities. For the first time, I began to seriously think about entrepreneurship. The lessons about marketing, customer service, and leadership inspired me to think about creating something of my own. A seed was planted in my mind, and I knew that one day I would make it grow. Looking back, going back to school was one of the best decisions I made. It gave me knowledge, confidence, and direction. It showed me that no matter where you come from, education has the power to transform your life. In California, opportunities were everywhere, but I needed the right tools to reach them. Education became that tool, and it changed everything for me. Chapter 7: Discovering Love. Life in California wasn't only about work, education, and personal growth. It was also about relationships, and eventually, I experienced something I hadn't expected: love. I met Emily during one of my evening classes. She was kind, intelligent, and had a warm smile that instantly made me feel at ease. At first, we only talked about school assignments, but soon our conversations grew deeper. Emily was born in California, but her parents had immigrated from another country, so she understood the challenges of adapting to a new culture. She admired my determination, and I admired her open heart and positive energy. We started spending time together outside of class, going for coffee, exploring the city, and enjoying long walks on the beach. Each moment felt natural, as if we had known each other for years. Being with Emily also helped me improve my English faster. She patiently corrected my mistakes, taught me new expressions, and encouraged me to speak without fear. At the same time, I shared with her stories about my hometown and my journey. We learned from each other, and that balance made our relationship strong. It was not just love, it was partnership. Of course, it wasn't always easy. We came from different cultures, and sometimes we disagreed about traditions or expectations. But instead of letting these differences separate us, we used them as opportunities to grow. We learned to listen, to compromise, and to respect each other's backgrounds. This taught me an important lesson. Love is not about perfection, but about commitment and understanding. Meeting Emily was one of the most beautiful surprises of my life in California. She became my best friend, my teacher, and my support. With her, I felt stronger and more motivated. For the first time, I didn't just dream about building a better life for myself. I dreamed about building a future together with someone I loved. Chapter 8: The Entrepreneurial Journey. Inspired by my classes and encouraged by Emily, I decided to take the first steps toward entrepreneurship. The idea of opening a cafe had been in my mind for a long time, but now it started to feel real. I began saving money, researching business models, and writing down plans. Every detail mattered: location, menu, design, and even the type of atmosphere I wanted to create. The process was overwhelming. There were permits to apply for, taxes to understand, and many risks involved. Sometimes I doubted myself, wondering if I was ready for such responsibility. But I reminded myself of how far I had already come. If I had managed to build a new life in a foreign country, I could certainly take this challenge. I pushed away my fears and focused on the possibilities. Emily supported me every step of the way. She helped me brainstorm ideas, gave me feedback, and motivated me when I felt discouraged. My friends also got involved, offering to help with decorations and promotions. It felt amazing to see how the people around me believed in my dream. Their support gave me courage and reminded me that success is never achieved alone. After months of preparation, the day finally came, the grand opening of my cafe. I remember standing at the entrance, nervous but proud. The first customers arrived, and soon the room was filled with laughter, conversations, and a smell of fresh coffee. My dream had become reality. Watching people enjoy the space I had created was one of the happiest moments of my life. The cafe was not just a business, it was a reflection of my journey. It represented persistence, courage, and the belief that dreams can come true. It was also a place where people from different cultures could connect, just as I had once connected with others in California. My cafe became my symbol of success, but more importantly, it became my way of giving back to the community that had welcomed me. Chapter 9: Giving Back to the Community. As my business grew, I felt the responsibility to give back to the community. I remember the struggles I had faced when I first arrived in California. The language barriers, the loneliness, the financial challenges. I didn't want others to feel lost the way I once had. That's when I decided to use my cafe as more than just a business. I started organizing weekly events where newcomers could practice English for free. I called it Coffee and Conversation Nights. People from all over the world came, shared stories, and supported each other. The atmosphere was full of laughter and learning, and many told me how much it helped them feel at home. Seeing the cafe filled with such positive energy made me incredibly happy. I also collaborated with local charities, donating part of my profits to help families in need. Sometimes we organized food drives or free meals for homeless people. At first, it was difficult to balance business and charity, but I knew it was worth it. The smiles on people's faces, the gratitude in their eyes, and the sense of unity we created reminded me why I had started this journey. Giving back also taught me something important. True success is not measured by money or possessions, but by the positive impact you make on others. Helping people gave me more satisfaction than any paycheck ever could. It was in those moments that I realized how much I had grown, not only as a businessman, but also as a human being. Through community work, I found deeper meaning in my life in California. I no longer saw myself as just someone chasing his own dreams. I became part of something bigger, a network of kindness and support. And in helping others, I discovered the greatest reward of all: inner peace. Chapter 10: Reflections and New Horizons. Years passed, and California became more than just a home. It became part of who I was. Looking back at my journey, I could hardly believe how much had changed. I had arrived with nothing but hope, and now I had a career, a business, friendships, and love. Every struggle, every challenge, and every sacrifice had been worth it. But I also knew that life was about constant growth. I didn't want to stop dreaming just because I had achieved some goals. Emily and I began to talk about expanding the cafe, maybe opening a second location or creating a cultural center where people could share music, art, and ideas. We also dreamed of traveling together, exploring new places, and bringing fresh inspiration to our projects. At the same time, I reflected on the lessons life in California had taught me. I learned resilience, patience, and courage. I learned the power of community, education, and love. Most importantly, I learned that success is not about where you start, but about how much you're willing to grow. California had shaped me into a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Standing once again on the beach, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, I felt grateful. I thought about the younger version of myself, nervous and unsure on his first day in California. I wished I could tell him, "Don't worry. It will be hard, but it will also be beautiful. Trust the process, because everything you dream of is possible." My story in California was far from over. In fact, it was only the beginning of a bigger journey. With love by my side, dreams in my heart, and determination in my soul, I looked at the horizon with hope. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was ready to keep writing my story, one chapter at a time.